We've seen enough ant movies to know the deal by now. Ants are underestimated. They're nature's hardest worker, building roads and tunnels, just like humans. They also can communicate. But unlike humans, they do this through pheromones. The queen will release a gas that makes the workers do whatever she wants. I don't even know if that's true, but hey, that's what they tell us. So, a little bit of spoilers here, but Empire of Ants is all about giant ants. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you knew that, seeing how this is directed by Mr. Big, Burt I Gordon himself. How do the ants grow to giant size? Well, how else? Radioactive waste. Gee, never seen that one before. Alright, with that all out of the way, we can get on to the main gist of the story. We meet a group of people interested in purchasing some land. Sort of like a timeshare thing, but way more scummy. The head realtor is Marilyn Fraser, and she's the worst of them all, knowing that she's trying to sell swampland at a premium. Just here for a paycheck is the boat captain Dan Stokely. He ends up being the leader when it hits the fan. Anyway, at first, nothing really happens. We learn about these people and their problems. They're shown around the property, all while being watched. The ants waiting for the perfect time to strike. And it comes, right as this couple wanders away to look at the shoddy pipework. However, the rest of the group don't notice that they're missing and continue on their way. That is until they find the dead bodies of some of the workers. Then they decide maybe it's best to check on their new friends. Sure enough, they're dead all right, and everyone makes it back to the beach, where it's too late. The ants have already taken over. Dan swims out to try to save his boat, but he ends up doing the opposite and blows it up. That's it. They're stuck on the island. They can either hide out in a boathouse or try to make it to an old rowboat on the other side of the island. Well, the boathouse is overrun, so that option's out. I guess it's time to make a run for it through the woods. However, most won't make it. This older couple hides out in a shed, which gets taken over pretty quickly. Another girl trips and falls, and this loser here just lets her die. The survivors load up on a boat and try to paddle out of there, the ants watching from the shore. They end up herding the humans like cattle, making them go where they want them to go, showing us that maybe us humans aren't as smart as we thought. Eventually, the boats capsize, and they're forced back to running through the woods, where they actually end up finding a house. The owners are nice enough, a little odd. The wife whispers something to them, which we do find out later, but for now they call the sheriff and get off the island, safe and sound. On their way to a motel, we learn about a sugar refinery. Ants and sugar, I'm sure we'll see that again. Anyway, they check in, but Dan isn't interested in staying the night or even taking a shower. He wants to rent a car and get out of there. The only problem is neither him or Joe have their license, and they'll have to wait until morning to do anything. Well, something's getting fishy, and the group can tell, so they hotwire a car and steal it. That's pretty extreme, but you gotta do what you gotta do. They look for anything they can use to help them fight, if the situation calls for it, finding only a couple flares. They just about make it out of town when they see a blockade. The police are stopping them from leaving. Luckily, there's a dirt road right before the cops that our heroes pull onto. There's a car chase, a shootout, but in the end, the cops get a hold of them and lead them into the factory, where inside is half the town, lined up and waiting for something. Here's where we learn what that old lady whispered to them. She warned the group to stay away from the sugar factory. And we're about to find out why. The queen ant is releasing her pheromones to all the townspeople. Apparently, once you're sprayed, you become complacent and forced to do the ant's bidding. But you have to be resprayed every couple weeks. Well, Dan's not going to have any of this, and once he goes in, he lights the flare and starts attacking the queen. This triggers all the others, letting Joe run away and steal a truck. He drives around with the gas tank open for a while. Then, once everyone's clear, he jumps out and blows up the refinery. And that was Empire of Ants, a very standard giant bug movie. It scratches that itch if you happen to be into oversized insects. But there's nothing really groundbreaking here. Radioactive waste, how many times have we seen that? Even for the 70s, this was dated. It also has its fair share of boring moments. The part where they're in the boat goes on for way too long. I feel like this might have been a better episode of The Twilight Zone or something like that. When they were in the town and all the locals weren't letting them leave, that was actually interesting. All the rest seemed like filler. Apparently, Burt I Gordon got into a fight late in the production with the sound man, and he threw all the tapes in the swamp, destroying all the audio. So they had to start over from scratch, and there are parts where you can tell, like the voices don't line up quite right.
Look at this, Mary. It's a water pipe. It isn't even connected. It's a fraud, just like I said. These people are dishonest. This is a fraud.
The effects of the ants crawling over the miniatures with actors green screened over top are your typical Burt I Gordon effects. But there is a bit of a charm to it. And the practical ants did look good. But one thing I didn't like are the sound effects the ants would make. It's so loud, which is good because sometimes you'll be falling asleep and then you'll hear the ants and wake right up. If you're looking for a giant ant movie, stick to them or even Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You'll have more fun watching that. I give Empire of Ants 1.5 ant pheromones out of 4.
If it was my money and I was going to buy this land, first I'd make sure they struck oil on it. And then I'd still think twice.